The elders at that time, so this is the late 80s, would speak about the abundance of the bay in their childhood. And so these community leaders were saying, we need to get the bay back to that state of health. Basically, it took 25 years for the stars to align at the community level, the state level with the governor, our congressional delegation, and then the President of the United States. And so on Obama's last day in office, on January 17th, 2017, he signed us into existence. But that was 25 years after this recommendation came out in the Kaneohe Bay Master Plan in 1992. So the people who are the revered elders now in the community, it was them back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s that were working so hard to protect this place. And it was this, it's this genealogical story of community empowerment that ended up with the creation of a National Estuarine Research Reserve. So it was led by a Native Hawaiian community, an indigenous community, a Native Hawaiian community. So I think we have actually designed science and conservation program that is it's indigenous designed and indigenous led, which is pretty unique because quite often you have conservation and research programs that are designed by non-indigenous people and then they hire indigenous people to try and make it work, but that's like oil and water. If you really want to do indigenous science and indigenous conservation, then it has to be designed by indigenous people, led by indigenous people, and that's what we have here, and we're doing some pretty amazing things that a lot of us are very proud of. And so yes, we are trying to be a model of co-stewardship for universities, for federal government, federally funded programs, for other indigenous communities who are wondering if this is a good way to approach the work. It's repositioning universities and governments in support of indigenous communities, which is not how things have historically been done in universities. It's usually, the model is we're going to show up in a place and we're going to do extractive research. We're going to use your place to benefit our research program, and then we're going to leave and not share anything back. And it's been like that for decades. It's been like that at our university. And so really this is an opportunity to say, okay, if we really did this right, what would that look like? And as I was saying earlier, it means indigenous communities coming up with the questions themselves. And then it positions university researchers as being in support of communities. So we're really trying to flip the script. So from the perspective of indigenous communities, it's more people coming in and severing our relationships with the things that connect us to our ancestors. Create a program that acknowledges that all of these things are interconnected, and we're going to use Hawaiian words to describe them, which is a human and nature relationship that's inseparable. And we're going to talk about how we're going to restore the relationships in this system. I don't believe that university science is superior to indigenous knowledge. I think they're two different things, but they're at the level playing field. So the way we talk about our research program is, let me say about half of our research, we're translating indigenous knowledge into policy. So we use science to use the knowledge that this community already had for centuries, and communicating that to somebody who has a PhD sitting in an office in the city. So it's really important that communicators recognize that there are two different worldviews. I think there's an assumption that the worldview that Americans bring into the room is the right way to think about the world, and just keep running with words like nature and wilderness and wildlife without realizing that even by using those words, you're kind of perpetuating intergenerational traumas on indigenous people.